Oh,
Hello.
guys, we're live. Guys, we're live. Hello.
Best book
Hi,
ever,
guys.
by the way.
That
Hello,
is the best
Jen.
book.
How are you?
Hello.
I'm good, thanks.
that?
Good, guys.
Is
How
that
are
a
you
book?
all?
I'm good, thank
What,
you.
Percy?
Yeah, Percy, was that a book? Is that a book?
No, this is actually a painting that I saw in Berlin.
Oh.
So yeah, didn't know what else to do for the opening. So yeah, hello.
I know.
Very good.
It's not like we're running out of ideas, and when you see all three of us, you know that Dear Future Grandkids is back. So I hope everyone is well. And as always, I'm Jen in Singapore, that's Ange in Hong Kong, and Percy in the Philippines with a mock book. When we said get a book ready, this is just classic us. I hope
we also broke Percy's rule. Percy has a rule that we can't wear.
Yes.
We're not allowed to wear black, and both of us broke it tonight.
You can all look back at the episodes and you will see that I rarely wear black, even though in real life I always wear black.
Yeah, because this is like production crew. You wear black, right, or stage hands and things like that, but not on TV.
But then again, Jen is wearing black instead of blue, so that's already an achievement.
I know.
See? Well, guys, this is Dear Future Grandkids. This is a show where we build a video time capsule right in front of our guests for them to play to their future grandkids. We're not going out live today, as our guest is based in the UK. This is a pre-record, but we would still appreciate your comments, so we will be watching live with you.
We will. And let's get to our guest today. He is a poet, a novelist, and a critic. His debut novel, Diamond Hill, was published in the UK and the US in 2021 to critical acclaim. His first book of poems, Paper, Scissors, Stone, won the inaugural Hong Kong University International Poetry Prize. His next collection of poems, entitled As Slow as Possible, was a Poetry Book Society recommendation and one of the Irish Times Books of the Year. He's been shortlisted twice for the Guardian Fourth Estate BAME Short Story Prize. He has won the Northern Writers Award for Fiction and Poetry, the Times Stephen Spender Poetry Translation Prize, and the Poetry Editors Prize for Reviewing. He was recently shortlisted for the Moth Poetry Accolade, judged by the Nobel laureate Louise Gluck. His third collection of poetry, The Ink Cloud Reader, has just been released. And if that wasn't enough, our guest was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in 2022. So joining us from the UK, let's welcome to Dear Future Grandkids, Mr. Kit Fan.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Kit.
Lovely to meet you
My
all.
goodness,
There
Kit.
you go.
I ran out of oxygen reading all your accolades.
That's the longest intro and the accolades. So for everyone watching, thank you very much. That's all the time we have for today's show. Take care. Bye.
Well, I think prizes and accolades are like a plate of spaghettis, and you just kind of eat them all and they disappear.
Too humble.
Very poetically spoken too.
Yeah.
Kid, okay, we know now how much you have achieved, but how did you get started in this literary career?
How do I get started? I started in the library. I was very much brought up in the library, and you might know that those were the days when parents could leave their children at the library in as a form of childcare. There was no, and so my mom left me in the library when I was 6 years old, and she went to work after school, and so I spent days and months in the library. In Kowloon Bay is in a kind of local library called Telford Gardens Library, which has been demolished. So it's very sad. That's how it started. I ate books. I started from
Like
shelf
spaghetti.
A.
Like spaghetti.
Exactly. I started from shelf A, and I just read my my way through to shelf Z. I was reading without knowing what I was reading most of the time.
And that's in Chinese or in English?
Mostly in Chinese, yeah. I remember reading some kind of Grimm's tales, Anderson tales, some Chinese mythology, some comic books about the journey to the West with Monkey King.
Oh, classic.
Yeah.
It was. I also remember reading a lot of science kind of books without a clue what was happening.
So that was how you got started. You were just eating up books in the library back in Hong Kong. And then at the age of 21, you moved from Hong Kong to the UK. Now, tell us about the move. I mean, was it hard to adapt? Was it a huge culture shock when you moved?
Thank you for asking that, because it was a strange time to move to Hong Kong. I think it was 2001. I didn't intend to move to the UK. I was studying my undergraduate degree at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and I had two very wonderful teachers there, Professor Ching and Professor Ho. They somehow convinced me that, oh, well, kid, you really need to spend some time abroad, wherever. Any English-speaking country would do you good. And they kind of really supported me to apply for scholarships and nagging me all the time, always on a weekly basis, saying that have you filled in the application form, blah blah blah, and I got a scholarship, and I went to the UK when after the handover in 1997. It was a very kind of exciting time for the city. A lot of my friends were kind of settling in, and they think there's great future. So it felt very strange to be moving back to the kind of old mothership called colonial Britain, but I did that. So I had mixed feelings actually then.
Wow. I mean, your professors clearly saw something in you, and without their inspiration and encouragement, there wouldn't have been a scholarship, and maybe there wouldn't have been any of these great works of literature from you.
Very. You're right. And I'm very grateful that I still keep in touch with them regularly, even though they have retired.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm sure they look upon you as just as fondly as you look upon them. That's really exceptional. All right, Kit. So we're going to hit you with some quick fire questions right now. So in just 3 words, describe how you're feeling.
Peaceful, spring-like, and excited.
Well, we're going to have to do something about those. Change that state. What's the most important thing I should know about you?
Most important thing I should know about you. I like cooking, but I stopped baking during the pandemic.
Wow, when everyone else was baking?
Yeah, you like cooking, but you stopped baking? Why?
My friends describe it as tragic, because I used to bake quite a lot of cakes and things like that. But for some reason, the pandemic kind of really put me off baking. I don't understand. Maybe I haven't really given it a lot of thoughts, but maybe to do with sharing, like, because when you bake a cake, you usually have friends around and you share with other people. So those days of kind of isolation, it just felt very pointless baking. So I haven't baked for a long time.
Oh, wow. And when it comes to writing, what's a motto you live by?
I don't have a motto, Ange. I think writing is about giving yourself some selfish time, because this is about you spending time with yourself. Usually now these days in front of the screen, but sometimes for people it might be with a pen and paper, and it is a really private moment and space you create around you, even if you're in the most public space. Sometimes I see people on a bus or on a train in the underground, they're typing text or messages on their phone, they feel so absorbed, and I felt actually they are writing.
Mm.
I think we have ever with the advance of technology, we probably are writing more than before. Uh, we're texting all the time, so I think there are many different forms of writing. So uh, and it is about being selfish and private.
Wow.
Well, not with the size of the font I use on my phone. It's not very private. Everybody can read it.
It depends on how nosy people around you are, though.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by very nosy people. Kit, okay, my question is, what is the first book you read? You mentioned at the age of 6 you started reading from A to Z, but what do you remember the first book that you really read was?
I I think it's probably a book of Greek myths or stories about the ancient Greek or Bible. I mean, there's one particular fable or story that stood out. It was to do, I think it's Solomon's judgment. I vividly remember. You remember this story of the mother taking two mothers fighting over one child, and then the real mother was willing to give up her own child because she doesn't want the child to be split apart. And I
I
vividly remember opening that book with a picture next to it, with the king sitting on a throne and a child kind of being pulled by two mothers. That really was one of my very early memory of reading. As you can imagine, as a boy about 6 year old, that story probably was quite frightening.
Yeah.
Thinking that
I
but
remember that story. It is frightening
yeah,
because
but
there's
it's
no one
also but it's
path.
so much about kind of motherhood, you being a child, authenticity, the real story of love and sacrifice. It was such a powerful story. I wish I have a physical copy of that book, but I just remember that cartoon picture of it.
Okay, I have to look for that too. It's in my memory, but I don't actually recall where I read it. Anyway, what was the first poem that you wrote?
The first poem that I wrote is as I mean, I wrote many poems in Chinese before, but the first poem I wrote in English um, is called Paper, Scissors, Stone, which is the title of my first book. Um, it's actually my partner who suggested I should write it down because I was telling the story of me being kind of left in the library, fend for myself, and and actually I was motivated to write down, and it was in a way the first poem, first as kind of feeling very accomplished poem that I wrote. Really,
Oh, and you just kept on writing since then, huh?
Yeah, and the very first poem you wrote became a published poem, which is very,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that was very common for people.
well, I don't. It wasn't that easy, and I think it was. I was thinking about it the other day because it wasn't a poem that I mean I could read it if it's not a very long poem. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah,
Yes,
please. We'd
yes,
love
please.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yes, please.
It probably about 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, I'll read it.
Yes.
Paper,
Yeah.
scissors, stone. It is not only the guilty secrets that are hard to tell in the end. From the age of 6, my mother put me in the Telford Gardens library in Kowloon so that she could sweat in other people's kitchens. That was why I owned a library corner. Every shelf hour held me in custody. Page travels, lost milk teeth, and pre-myopia. Curled up in my shelf in the sun with Little Red Riding Hood and King Midas, month by month I crawled like a snail past spines of fairy tales before I knew the moon goddess, the dragon dance, dandelion, and chrysanthemum. There were years of afternoons, clouds and thunders, without parents. I dreamed of an orphan age, long corridors, dawn bed, wet sheets, breathing up against the wall. I made myself homeless, as if she would never come back, her hands tinted with bleach. I prayed that my book-lined womb would not be scissored apart as pages and covers raised the skin against the emperor's new clothes. And I wasn't totally wrong. That August 7 years ago, the library was torn down like many other things. No trace now of books or shelves or readers, only dust, pits, cranes, and stones. The limbs of Orpheus are not there. Even though guilty secrets are hard to tell, I wish you could have told me why paper attracts scissors, books turn to stones. So that's the poem.
Wow. Oh,
Wow.
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 I could
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us.
No,
Yes.
no, my pleasure. So
I could
the poem
picture
was
you
written
in
a
the
long
library.
time ago. I mean, it felt I felt quite exposed having written a poem like that. And then when I sent it to many poetry editors, I was quite probably 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
I got lots of rejections. I mean, it was amazing amount of rejections. In fact, this poem has never been published in any poetry magazine. And I have editors coming back to me saying things that would not be tolerated these days. You know, they were saying things like, "Why are you writing about these Chinese experiences? Um,
Right.
what
Mm.
what are these places that you call like Kowloon?" And
Wow.
so there were lots of I think lack of inclusiveness of what poetry and voices are like back in those days in the UK, and of course now it's completely transformed. But I was only recently remember that um, those were the days when when diverse voices were not welcomed, and
And I'm
Different
glad we're past
times.
that.
yeah, I'm really glad that too. But it's good to remember that. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to remember that you don't take it for granted. That once upon a
certainly
time,
don't.
very recently, it was like that. So, and I think it's important that kids realize that it took a while for us to get here.
Yeah. So, Kit, that being your first poem and was published later on, do you have any strange habits or rituals when you write, or just in general?
I think we all have strange habits and rituals, don't we?
Oh,
That's
so
why we
yeah.
that's why that's why we're so lovable.
Oh, I'm glad you put it
Um,
that way.
I think, I mean, certainly in terms of writing, I have a full-time job. So I work in a medical school as a governance manager.
Yeah.
So it's quite a demanding job. I tend to write after work. Usually my best writing hours are between 5 and 7 p.m. Um, in the day. I don't know why. Maybe just before when I'm really hungry, that's when I can write really well. It's a bit like a kind of fasting or something. Yeah,
Maybe.
I just feel I do feel that when my stomach is full, I often can't write very well. I don't know why. So this is true. I'm not joking. So that's my ritual. I try to kind of get myself into that sense of quite hungry state, a bit
Mm.
tired at the end of the day. The sun is setting, usually raining in the UK, mind you. So, so, so that's when I get into the mood, and those are my habits, really.
And you write
Nice,
every day,
yeah.
don't you, Kit? You have a discipline where you try and write every single day, no matter
I
what.
try
don't
to
you?
write every single day, even though it's like
Wow.
one word, or I will all I mean. I've been asked like, how do you do it? I said, well, you just do it. So you open the file that you've been working on, and you probably sometimes I have like 10 minutes, and I just look at what I've written, and probably feel like quite bad that I don't have time, and then I'll just look at what I've written and whether I'll adjust a word or read out the last sentence, and just kind of keep myself into the mind frame of the work in order to that's how I do it.
So let's just say now it's we're having a glimpse of your life. It's past 7 p.m. You have done your writing. You are feeding yourself now because you had this hunger pangs. So
Yeah.
your creative streak has been nourished. You're eating now, and you're trying to relax. Do you relax with, dare I say, watching TV, a TV series, or would you read a book to relax?
Oh, I'm a total TV junkie. Yeah, so I
Oh,
watch
Yeah.
I watch anything. Even I put my friends to shame because I will watch absolutely anything. Uh,
Okay,
like
what's scraping the barrel? Like what's the lowest
or
denominator?
anything that
Like
you think
you say
like
anything, like the Home Shopping
fashion, like
Network.
like any food program, any on Netflix, like there's a program called Next in Fashion. Basically,
Yeah.
I mean, I watch like Bling Empire. Those are the kind of lowest of a lot of my friends would be considered lowest of the low. I watch all sorts like series. Yeah, I'm watching The Diplomat on Netflix. I was watching The Night Agent.
And those are
Uh,
all new. You're definitely a TV buff there, the series.
yes, I'm totally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's.
Brilliant.
I watch a
I
lot of
wasn't
YouTube.
expecting that.
I watch YouTube like Andrew will probably know, like because I can't get a lot of nice Cantonese food in York where I live, so in the absence of beautiful food in Hong Kong, usually at night I'll just watch these YouTube videos of food review of restaurants, like rice paper.
Oh,
I know it's a bit
oh,
sad, isn't it?
oh dear.
It's not so different from my life, and I'm living in Hong Kong. Not so
Okay.
different.
yeah, that's what YouTube is for. I like it that we're seeing this other side of you, Kit. Huh? This TV junkie. Because
Oh
we're
yeah, I
thinking,
am a TV junkie. I'm very happy to confess that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
well, okay, it's time we want to do a bit of snooping around a bit more to get to know you better. This is a part of the show where we become the nosy detectives. So, Kit,
Okay.
we're dying to see what's your corner of shame. Basically, what else is there in that room? You know, the one
Okay.
spot that you want to show your worst enemy.
Well, you're seeing the kind of fireplace, blah blah blah. But I will show you what I'm actually looking at, which I consider as shame.
Wow,
TV
you got a
you
nice
see it.
place.
It's a nice place.
So you
Oh,
see,
wow.
Whoa.
there's a massive bookshelf on the whole wall. So
There's nothing
it's kind of
shameful
floor
about
to
that.
ceiling. I feel ashamed because I just feel like I haven't read all of these books, and some of these books are my partner. So it's kind of, it just feel, what are they for?
It's a nice bookshelf.
Yeah,
But it does
Yeah,
feel like a
very
library to
impressive.
me.
Yeah.
I'm
But on the
curious.
flip side, right, it'll be worse if it was you had a beautiful floor to ceiling bookshelf and it was just half full.
Yeah,
It'll be weird, right? I
I
mean,
I very much like your approach to well, I mean, I suppose people put different things on shelves. You know, you can put a nice pot. You can put some like.
yeah.
I mean, I was looking at your shelf. You know, you have different things on them. We're during the
many.
pandemic.
Yeah.
We're all very nosy of what people put in their
Yeah,
background.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I was
That's
like-
how this show started.
Yeah.
That's exactly how this
Yeah.
show began.
I've got like DVD box sets from way back still there. So I've got books and that and board games and
I
Yeah,
love
for the
Do
kids
you have a
as well.
DVD?
actually.
yeah.
Do you actually have
I
a
have
player?
a DVD.
You
Yeah,
have
I
a
still
player.
have I still have a
Uh-huh.
DVD player. Yeah.
You better
Oh.
get one, Ange, because
Yeah.
like there are days where you kind of rely on the internet so much, but what there were
True.
moments like the internet just didn't work. And it was a lifesaver to get some DVDs out.
Kid, that they laugh at us now. When the time comes, they're gonna be calling us.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
the
Yeah.
internet's
You-
down. There's no Wi-Fi anywhere. There's nothing to watch. We've got the hardware and software. Okay, we've got the DVDs.
Yeah, and I would
Yeah.
not lend my DVDs or my player out. It's an antique.
Too right, and you shouldn't as well. It's yours.
Yes, and you shouldn't, because if you move it, it might actually get damaged. Remember?
These
Yeah, these-
antiques.
Oh God, remember this man? Sorry. Anyway, that's another conversation. But Kit, I tell you what, thank you for sharing with us your wonderful floor-to-ceiling bookshelf. But now we're gonna, get you working or keep you working. So could you just fetch us 2 items, either from your career or your travels that hold a special place in your heart?
Yes.
yeah.
I have got this beautiful bowl.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that is
Ooh.
beautiful. That looks handmade.
Yeah.
It is handmade, and I bought it in my first travel to Kyoto,
Oh,
which a
stunning.
city that I really adore. I bought it in a temple, not in the center of Kyoto, actually, a bit northern Kyoto. It was just a beautiful temple with a little bit of river, and I think they might made it in the temple. Either the monks made them or the worshipper made them. They were selling a lot of these in the temple.
wow.
Nice.
So that is a special bowl for me. The other object is a book that I have very close to my bedside. It's called On Reading by Andrei Katash. He is a photographer.
Mhm.
So he was a Hungarian photographer. So you
Oh.
basically have this is a book basically of
People
People
reading.
People
reading.
reading.
Oh,
Oh,
a whole
I
book
didn't
on that.
think so.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a long book. How many pages? About 70 pages.
Isn't that
you see
great?
how
I
beau-
love that.
You see how
theme.
beautiful it is? He was in
Yeah.
Japan,
Yeah, yeah.
and you see the nun and the mother reading on a train. It's
That's just a
amazing. And you see
gorgeous
these
theme.
kids during the war
Oh yeah! Wow.
reading in a pile of newspaper
Papers.
and having
yeah.
his chocolate ice cream.
Yeah.
It's just a book that
Wow.
really meant a lot to me, and I always think about if there was a fire in the house and there are a few, you can only grab a few objects. I'll grab my passport, my wallet, and I'll definitely grab this book.
Oh wow.
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 And can you imagine the sequel's going to be on scrolling? It just would.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not the same. Not the
Someone
same.
doing that. But
It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
not the
People
same.
going.
I mean, what a wonderful book, because I realized that when I commute to work, it takes me an hour on the train. But and everyone's on the phone, all right, and I'm guilty of it as well. But it's what I always lift my head up when I see someone reading, like reading a
Yeah.
book. It's like it always captures my attention, and then I'll be like trying to nosy and see, oh, what title is that? What book are they reading? It's just, but it's few and
noticed
far
that
between.
too.
Yeah.
I noticed that too, especially when I travel. Like I think on the train is when you notice people reading. People barely read on the bus. I mean, people might read on the plane, but there's something about the train, when you're sitting opposite one
Yeah.
row and then
Mhm.
and the other row opposite each other, and then when for some reason, I found it very moving. It is a very public space, but it is very moving when you suddenly see somebody reading, and you get quite curious, like what are they reading? Is it a book that I've read before? And then you also you kind of have a weird connection when you feel like, oh, actually, I love that book too, or that book looks really interesting. I wonder if I should read that. Immediately, it gives you access to somebody that you don't know, and
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
love that. And of course, these days you really see people mostly on the phone. But when I traveled in London recently, I was surprised that maybe um, 1 or 2 out of 10 people are still reading.
That's what I
Um,
noticed when I was in
Yeah.
London. It's
Yeah.
very rare elsewhere, but in London, you really see
yeah,
that someone is always carrying a book around on the subway, and that may be because the internet is so bad on the London
On the tube.
Underground.
Yeah.
yeah. And if you guys on Instagram, there are accounts, Instagram accounts, something called, I can't remember, like people reading on a train or something. Um, there are
Oh, I'd
actually
love that.
pictures of people take pictures of each other reading. And what's kind of weird about that is you kind of your heads are always down and you're kind of half visible.
Mhm.
um, it feels quite vulnerable sometimes when and it's just something very moving when a person is reading and not being
Yeah.
noticed. Yeah.
It's kind of an
Yeah,
out
it's
of body
definitely made
experience.
me. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I've bought a book. I've just watched someone read a book and they look so engrossed, and I've ended up going to Amazon right there and then and buying it on the spot because they just look so captivated by the book and the
Yeah.
covers catching and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely inspiring. And then Kit, you're also a critic, aren't you? You're also a critic, which always
I
makes
am a
me think
critic.
that you criticize, which always makes me think it's bad. But I know that's not true. And how does one become a critic? Do you find it hard because you're a writer yourself, so it's hard to you want to always say something positive first? How does it work for
This
you?
is a very good question, and I mean, this is touches upon something quite interesting about my life. Like, I review a lot of poetry and also sometimes fiction for the Guardian newspaper. Um, I love reviewing because often I'm reading something that I don't normally read myself, and therefore it's a way to widen my own very narrow horizon and taste. We all have, but when you're asked to review something, um, you're thrown into a new universe. Um, it is difficult. I mean, I tend to review things that I like, but sometimes you don't know what you like, and also what may appear to be likable can turn into unlikable halfway through the novel, or it's always full of surprises. So I always found it is. I haven't perfected it. It's something that I learn all the time. I read quite a lot of reviews. I see how other people do it. How do you express something that you're not sure about without being mean? And or if you do want to be mean, how can you make it fun? uh, and so there are skills involved, and I think I want to come to the book rather than the writer, because there's a lot of noise about, if you these days you can Google somebody and then you read around that person or about that person, then you immediately formulate some opinion about that person, whether this is a photograph or something that they tweeted, or something they said on the Instagram. So whenever I'm reviewing something, I do not Google that person.
Wow.
I just want to read the book, and after reading the book, I give myself time to really reflect on what I think about that book, not about that person.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how I do it. So it makes life a lot easier because you cut out all the noises of the world. And because the moment you start finding who that person is, you might then change something of what you think. But ultimately, when I'm reviewing a piece of writing, and I'm much more concerned about the quality of the work than what they said on the internet.
That's actually really good because a lot of people tend to look at the subjective side, right? And like I obviously read a lot of reviews too because for films and everything. And it always annoys me when somebody compares somebody's past work to what they're reviewing now. I'm going like, that's not on the table, guys. And what he has done in the past is irrelevant to how this particular film, or in this case, this particular book, is going to be judged, right? So
You're
I
right.
like I like your attitude about that. It should really just zero in on this piece of art in front of you. And that's it. No circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, just be monogamous.
That's the way of putting it, you.
Yeah.
There's a motto.
Okay, there's a motto. All right, Kit. This is the point in the show where we ask you to grab your phone and leave a meaningful voice message, maybe to some writer that you reviewed. No, no, not that one.
An apology.
No, it can be anybody on your
Yeah.
contact list.
I'm going to leave a message to my friend called Mimi Ching. She was one of the professors who taught me in Chinese University of Hong Kong. I still keep in touch with her, so it feels very natural to be leaving her a message. So I'm going to leave a message now. Hi, Mimi. I'm doing quite well. Recently in York, the spring is coming. Such a relief. We have some warmth finally. I know you like insects, butterflies, and moths. I saw a moth yesterday at the house and was quite frightened because it was quite big. so, so instead of killing it, I opened the window and kind of nudged him or her or it to fly out, and I closed the door. And it was to my relief that after 5 minutes, it did fly out. So, and I thought of you when I let the moth out the window. I thought you would be proud of me not killing the moth. So, well, let's catch up another day. But I hope you're well. Bye.
Oh, wonderful.
Trust the poet to paint with words, like literally painting a picture with words.
Yeah.
You just
You could-
created a whole scene for us.
Yeah.
That's a
Could you
strong
just-
visual right there.
Could you
Good,
please,
good.
from now on, every week, just leave us a random voice message
Yeah,
every week? Yeah, yeah.
I can, but I'll have to charge you
Yeah.
because this is called service. If I have to do it every day.
Well, so that you
Fair
don't trust
point.
me to do about cockroaches, so that you will remember me with cockroaches.
That's a fair point. That's
I will have a very different attitude toward cockroaches. Did you just say cockroaches?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember cockroaches, and I'm so relieved I have not seen them for over 20 years.
I can deal with cockroaches. I can.
Oh, really?
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, because I grew up in
actually scream.
Malaysia, I live in Singapore. I can deal with that. I can't deal with like house geckos, like lizards. Just they spook me.
You are
but,
very brave.
wow, I
I'm
wouldn't
like
say I'm
Ange.
brave.
I'm like Ange. I literally scream my head. My head explodes when I see a cockroach. and I remember at home was with my sister, my mom and dad. Only my mom could handle cockroaches. Even my dad, like as a kind of, he is quite a burly and muscular man. He goes totally sissy when he sees a cockroach. He is sometimes he just shut the door and then left me and my sister to fend for ourselves when there's a cockroach in the
You go deal with that. You go deal with that. No, that's an interesting insight into your family, and we're going to stick with family for now. What are sort of stories would you tell your future grandkids when it comes to your family? I mean, obviously that was a story about your dad and cockroaches. What sort of stories would you share about your family and childhood, especially since you have lived in Hong Kong and now
Yeah.
lived in UK for a while as well?
One story I could share, which is related to my novel Diamond Hill, is not completely related. My parents still live in one of the high rises in Kowloon Bay, almost adjacent to the old Kai Tak Airport, well, future grandkids, you will not know what kind of airports you have to Google and to find out what it was quite impressive airport. I think it's right in the middle of the city, surrounded by high-rise buildings. So in the past, pilots when they landed on Kaijak Airport, they got a bonus because it's actually very difficult to land, and only the most skillful pilots could do that. So when I lived with my parents, we lived in this high rise adjacent to the Kai Tak airport, and over far beyond the Kai Tak airport, I could see that very rundown pitch of land, which is really the outskirts of Diamond Hill. It was the last shanty town in Hong Kong, and as a child, I remember often in bed just before going to sleep, I look out to the window, you see the planes parked in the kind of half dark runway, and then beyond that you see some very faint yellow lights of the shanty town. And I was very struck by that. Actually, I didn't know what to make of it. My grandparents took me to Diamond Hill shanty town once. They were doing something there, getting some kind of, I don't know what, jewelry or whatever. So when I visited Shantytown, I was really shocked. The scale of kind of hygiene, cleanliness, and also it wasn't the Hong Kong that I was used to. So as you know, the Shantytown in the end was had to be got rid of, and it was developed into some glitzy shopping malls like many places in Hong Kong. So I always those images of the shanty town really stayed with me, and that's where Diamond Hill came from. Really, I wanted to write a novel about a facet of Hong Kong that people don't usually know, like who would want to read a story about a poor neighborhood running down, finally has to be redeveloped, involving a nunnery. I mean, it sounded pretty far-fetched, but that was the kind of story that was very close to my childhood. It felt close to my childhood anyway.
Wow, such an evocative period. I mean, my aunt was born in a shanty town. It was the one that burnt down on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And she was born Christmas Eve, and she had to leave it because it literally burnt down the very next day, and so that's why it's such a evocative memory for me as well. Those times, not that I was around during those times, but I just from the stories that my aunt told me.
I think it was a very informative thing for. I don't know what our future grandkids will think about the world, but I was born in 1979. Hong Kong was still at the edges of kind of extreme wealth. It wasn't really that wealthy. There were parts of Hong Kong that were quite rough, and Diamond Hill area was one of them. And I remember Sogo, the shopping mall in Causeway Bay, was open in 1984 or something. It was a really trendy thing, a Japanese department store open in the middle of Causeway Bay. I remember people queuing to get in. So I felt having those memories of the city not being completely capitalistic helped me understand the history of the place, because it was, after all, quite an insignificant fishing village, but somehow exploded into global financial hub because of colonialism. And I want our future kids to remember that. A lot of places that you experience, you look has a very surprising history behind them.
Very true.
Yep.
Amazing.
So,
Make me miss my
do you
phone.
have Kit a pointless skill that you could show to us right now? That's completely pointless, can't be monetized in any shape or form.
I don't know why you three of you dreamed up with this crazy question. It must be kind of pandemic question. You bore out of your mind.
It was existential, correct?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Well, my pointer skill is it's not a party trick, but I used to kind of show it to my kind of younger relatives or children. Is I could actually make my eyes disappear. So,
What? Okay, we're ready.
Gotta
We're
see
ready.
this. Gotta see this.
Come on,
Yeah.
come on, show
yeah,
us.
I'm going to
Come
come
closer,
closer.
come closer.
Yeah.
I will come
closer.
close, and
So-
I mean,
Okay.
if kids you're watching it, you are allowed to scream. Okay, I'm gonna make my eyes disappear now. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Isn't it beautiful?
That was freaky. That was
That is
freaky.
freaky.
How did you
What-
figure out you could do that?
I know.
Was
I
it
have
in the
no
library
idea.
too?
I suppose if I
Yeah,
was a
like-
kid, I probably was a kid playing with my eyes, and then suddenly I realized, oh, I could do that. And then I turned to my sister, maybe asked, oh, can you do that? She said, like, no. It is a
You know,
skill.
Well-
yeah, it is. When it comes to that, and when we ask this question, when you answer a brief, I mean, that was the perfect answer. So, have you got a pointless skill? And
Yeah,
you
it
certainly
was.
proved that. Yeah.
I take it as a compliment. Yeah.
It is a compliment. It is an absolute compliment. Now, Kit, talking about future grandkids, what genre of books would you insist they read? Or would you even do that?
I wouldn't insist a genre because I don't actually believe in genre. I think it's a kind of categorization that people dreamed up for marketing people to sell books. It's like putting people into boxes, or when you take out a box of crayon, oh, you call that red, you call that orange, you call that whatever blue. But then, as we all know, when we use the color in a picture, it all mixed up together anyway. so,
Okay.
so I actually think that genre is a construct, and we need to be very careful when we talk about genre. And I want our future grandkids to say, when people, when they handed out a book of fiction, they need to think about, it is a book of fiction, it is about a fictional world, but there is reality in fiction. When they hand out a book of poetry, of course there's music in the lines, in the poems, beautiful imagery, but from that beauty, there's also truth, but there might also be lies and fiction in there too. So all these things merge in the end. It's like you put your washing in the laundry and they come out in one load. So I don't think future grandkids, you guys should read anything that you like to read. It doesn't matter what they are, what genre people tell you should or you shouldn't read, which genre has higher status, more important than the others. Don't believe in them. Just read whatever you like to read.
I love
Sound
that.
advice.
I love
Yeah.
that. And would you apply the same don't worry about status when it comes to advising your dear future grandkids what to do for a living? I mean, you've got a full-time job. You're
Yeah.
a poet, you're a novelist. You've taught, haven't you? You've also taught creative writing as well.
Not professionally. I occasionally give
professionally.
workshops, yeah,
Yeah.
but not often
Would
enough.
you-
I'm not a very
would-
good
is this-
teacher.
Really? I doubt very much. I doubt very much.
I just don't have the patience. Seriously.
Well,
Definitely.
so would this be an occupation that you would recommend, or this lifestyle with a mix of occupations that you'd recommend to any future grandkids or any of the next future generation?
Well, it is a very interesting question because a lot of our status in society comes out from our profession, isn't it? Especially in Asia, unlike probably in Britain, there's something called class, which has nothing to do with your profession, your wealth. It's just where you're born into. So we don't. When I was brought up in Hong Kong, I didn't have the concept of class. You can be whoever you want to be, which I thought was brilliant. My father is a taxi driver. He's still working. So I come from quite what people describe as humble origin here in the UK. I didn't feel I came from humble origin when I was in Hong Kong, until I came to the UK. It's interesting what humble means in different countries, and I don't think. I think profession is one of these myths in lives that nobody knows how to crack. Some professions clearly are about calling. Like if you want to be a teacher, you want to be a doctor. As I said, I work in a medical school. I deal with lots of doctors. I do think that some profession requires so much of your dedication and selflessness that it has to be a calling. But some professions, you just stumble upon it and you find that you love it, and then you somehow just stay with it. And it might be to do with luck. It might be to do with connection. I don't think profession should define one's interests. I am a writer, but I don't live or work in the writing world. I'm not teaching creative writing. I don't teach literature per se. I work in a kind of pretty busy environment in medical school. I write a lot of regulations, policies, and codes of practice as a governance manager. A lot about rules. I deal with regulators. A lot of people will see as quite boring things. I deal with emergency when there's a crisis. So I'm a bit of a problem solver, and I can see writing is actually problem solving. If you're writing a novel, you give yourself a fictional world, you create a world, you create some characters in it, and they have problems, they have crises, they have conflicts, they fall in love. They have their problems, and you try to solve it in a book, and then you ended up not solving it. So, and to answer your question directly, I don't have specialist advice to our future grandkids. I think they should follow their passion, and with a bit of luck, they will get there.
Well, I think that's the best advice of all, in fact. It's about, like you said, if you have a calling, go for it. Don't let yourself get pigeonholed. Don't let yourself get steered by maybe family pressure or obligation. A calling is a calling, and you should do your best to try and meet that. And there'll be a combination of luck in there for sure. So I think that's just really beautiful words to end on, actually, Kit. So thank you so much for helping us build this video time capsule. As we close up the show and we close the lid on this capsule, you get to speak directly to the next generation and leave your lasting message to them. So what would you say to your future grandkids?
Okay, I love this part. Dear future grandkids, don't be afraid when things and people around you may be disappearing one day, because you have to remember the world is larger than one person, and the universe is bigger than one planet.
Wow. I got blown away by that.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. No,
I
no
was
words.
thinking about it. I was thinking about it. What I was going to say to the grandkids, and I think that was I want. Yeah, that's what I want to tell
Yeah.
them.
I love that. Wow. Thank you so much, Kit, for being our guest today and for that very insightful message to us, not to
Yes.
only your future grandkids. So, how can people find out more about you and your books, Kit?
I have a website, so if you Google me, my name, hopefully it will come up. The magic of Google, and and you found out about me. Yeah, you also found out about me by reading my books. That's the privilege of being a writer. People know you through the words you've written, or they think they do, but but it is a beautiful thing, and I see it as a privilege to be able to write and to be able to be read by others. So thank you, the three of you. I think it's a beautiful golden triangle: Hong Kong, Singapore, Philippines, and it's beautiful to spend time with you, the three of you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, Kit, it's wonderful to have you on the show. It's such a privilege. Thank you so much for sharing with us your insights and your stories as well. And to everyone that's been watching, this has been Dear Future Grandkids, where we look to the past to give us lessons for the future. For the last time for today, I'm Jen, that's Percy and Ange, and what Kit calls the beautiful triangle. And of course, our wonderful, wonderful guest for today, Kit. Kit, thank you so much. Take care. Thank you all for watching. Take care and see you the next
Thanks
time.
everyone for
Bye-bye.
watching. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kit.
Bye.
Thanks, Kit.
Bye.